Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast from the not-so-sunny West Midlands here in the UK. It seems a cold, wet and windy winter has arrived in full force today. But I wanted to share with you a unique story that I think will resonate with you all. Because today's guest was dissatisfied with the often overwhelming legal field and too often wasted valuable time and money on subpar intellectual property law solutions and that leave them exposed and vulnerable to lawsuits. So he wanted to create something different. And he did. So with the rise of cannabis startups, fueled by tech, to create whole new industries that are emerging and popping up all over the place, he wanted to become a lawyer that supported people and their dreams, whether it is business, innovation or art. Ultimately, it was about helping passionate people achieve their goals and is driven to become the best marijuana lawyer he can be. Intrigued? Well, buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Seattle so we can speak with Neil from Gleam Law. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Neil. Great name, by the way, but first of all, can you just tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Neil Juneja, and I founded a law firm called Gleam Law, which has its home office in Seattle, and we all now also have offices in Portland, San Francisco, and LA. And we mainly focus on the cannabis industry.
Now, before we talk about Gleam Law, I feel like I've got to explore your backstory and how early in your career you wanted to create something different. And you did just that. So can you tell me a little bit about that backstory?
Well, when I got started doing law, it just seemed like things were a little bit different and stuffier. And I wanted to reach my social circles, my friends, and the industries I worked in a little bit better. So I got to reevaluate every aspect of a law firm. And in some scenarios, law firms are run exactly as they should be. In others, I found that a lot of it's antiquated and we can really upscale it with better technology or a different setting or, even reevaluate things like dress code and hours of operation.
So what does being a lawyer mean to you, just to set the scene? I mean, technology is dominating every industry at the moment, and LegalTech is playing a big part in that. So what does being a lawyer mean to you, and how does it help you make your next move and bring Gleam Law to life?
I think being a lawyer is really just carrying on the conversation between two parties and working out transactions, deals, or just having everybody agree on something, whether it's in litigation or in any type of business operation. All we're really trying to do is get along here. So in a sense, you can be the mediator.
So what is Gleam Law and how are you guys using technology and who are your clients and what is it that you guys do that's different?
Well, we definitely use technology to the bit where most of my attorneys don't even go to the office. The only reason I require attendance in the Seattle office is I get lonely if I'm here by myself, so I make everybody come in and keep me company. But generally, we have attorneys that are all over the world that work on the West Coast, but maybe don't live there very often. So one's in Madrid right now for a few months, but they're still working the whole time. So it's anything from voice over IP to any way to communicate to any way to track. We used to have a program where you could track our work on your phone and see how far along we were progressing. That turned out to be a bad idea because they would check every few hours and then yell at you that you haven't done their work yet. So sometimes technology can also be a hindrance.
So as for Gleam Law, you guys first caught my attention when I read about how you prevailed against the city of Seattle on a case wherein the city claimed its client operated a cannabis business without a cannabis business license. Just for anyone that's listening that has not heard or seen anything about that story, can you just expand exactly what happened and how you helped?
Sure. That's actually a recent case that one of our litigators handled. So essentially, you can't smoke cannabis in any public place, and you're not allowed to provide a place to smoke. So if you, let's say, live in a dorm, you can't smoke anywhere, or even eat a cookie by law anywhere in the state. If you come in as a tourist, you can't. So what this was a shop called Cannabis City had a smoking area outside, and they said, you can smoke out here. We're not really going to pay attention. But, you need a place to smoke. And we're not going to say whether it's cigarettes or cannabis, but we're not really going to look into it. And the city of Seattle has an ordinance that says that if you provide a place to smoke without a license, it's just not permitted. You can't do that. But the thing is, there is no license available in the city or the state to provide a place to smoke. So they got that ticket, and they used some evidence that showed that Cannabis City actually wanted to create a place for cannabis smoking, and they didn't have a license to do so. And we were to push that off by saying there is no license. You effectively banned it. Why did you create the ordinance? And they got away with it, and now they're back on their soapbox saying we really need to fix this. And, hey, maybe you should smoke cannabis out over here near our shop. Maybe not. We're not really going to state anything about it.
I mean, you guys specialise in this area, but how did you build your profile and become known as the go-to guys to get help in these kind of situations?
When it came to cannabis, so I started the law firm out of my bedroom, and that was by accident, really. I used to own a lighting business that did concert tours and production lighting and festivals and such. And when I finished law school, my clients came to me and they said, hey, can you do lighting? I said, no, I can't. I'm going to go follow my career. Well, what is your career? I'm a lawyer. Oh, you're a lawyer? We need a lawyer. And suddenly I had a whole client base. So I started out of my bedroom, and about 5 years later, as I was expanding, I eventually went into co-working offices and then to real offices and then started hiring people. One of my clients where I represented all of his businesses got the license for the first retail cannabis shop. And we opened in Seattle with thousands of media and 5-hour-long line, and we sold out of cannabis in 2.5 days. So we were on the front row of it happening, dealing with the original regulations, dealing with the statutes. So it was a natural fit where you're the first settler, so you start the city.
And is it only Seattle that you're operating at the minute? Because obviously there's a lot of legislation now, or legalization in, I think, is it California and Colorado and Canada? Is it specifically Seattle that you're focused on?
No, we have offices. We have 4 offices on the West Coast, but we also do quite a bit of patent and trademark work, and we have clients all over the country and all over the world. So I've even got clients in Saudi Arabia, India, China, Korea. Some of it for cannabis, some of it not. As well as we have patent and trademark clients for cannabis in Hawaii, all over the East Coast, Midwest, Arizona, etc. So we do have clients all over the world, as well as we're doing licensing deals in Canada. Canada is the second country to fully legalize cannabis and much larger of an industry than Uruguay, which is the first country.
And you mentioned things like patents there, and I think a lot of people listening won't necessarily associate patents and things like that with the cannabis industry. So have you got a couple of use cases and the kind of things that you're dealing with there and the kind of companies that you're helping?
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 kinds of patents. There's utility patents, and that's 98% of all patents. And then there is design patents, which is the industrial design of items. And then there is plant patents. And plant patents are really rarely used, but there is one for cannabis called Ecuadorian sativa that actually protects the phenotype, so the gene expression of the plant. And they use photographs as well as terpene profiles and cannabinoid profiles. So those are the secondary metabolites that we know of as THC and CBD. But beyond that, as far as utility patents, there's absolutely ones for types of solutions, for types of grow methods, for types of extraction methods. So an extraction would be something where you take the plant and you either through different water or hydrocarbons or supercritical CO2 are able to extract THC, the psychoactive component, as well as other types of active and maybe non-active components. CBD is a common 3-letter term, cannabidiol. Terpenes are things that are like flavors, but in high concentrations, we feel like it affects the buzz or the medical effects. So these types of things are protected by patents. Solutions are, even grow methods are, I subject it to this much sunlight at this wavelength for this much time, is theoretically protectable.
So how would you, or from your experience, how are you seeing technology transforming both your business and indeed the entire cannabis industry? Is there any observations or insights that you could share on that?
Absolutely. For the cannabis industry, things are becoming so automated. If you think back 10 years, it was a guy in the basement hiding out from the cops, and now you have greenhouses that open and close, light areas and HVAC systems and have passive systems, as well as automatic trimming machines, Everything that's built well is done by quite a bit of technology that can all be remotely controlled. So you can be on the beach in Hawaii telling your plants what to do, with your cell phone, which is just beautiful. As far as a law firm, I think a lot of it is just mobility and easy access. And you're never going to get a vacation again because people can always reach you. So as along with any other business.
Now, when I was doing a bit of research on you guys, I quickly noticed that you were recently featured on a list of the most powerful cannabis attorneys that you should know. I mean, that's got to make you feel incredibly proud that you made that brave decision early on in following your own path.
Oh, it is. The fun part about those types of lists are there's not a whole lot of cannabis attorneys. I think what counted 25 in Washington, 45 in LA. So we generally all make all of the lists, which makes us feel extra special.
Remarkably modest and humble with it. So what advice would you give to other business leaders or startup founders who are coming across their own set of problems in any industry and just want to do things differently and follow their own path? Is there anything that you've learned that you would pass down to them?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is you go into a business or an industry and you look at how it's done and you say, you know what, let me reevaluate this. Does this make sense or is this just tradition? And I think that was an easy one to crack in law, especially because a lot of it is done by tradition and you can go paperless and that's one good way to go. But you can really reevaluate everything and do a much lighter load. Much lower budget in order to do the same thing, which means you can provide services at a lower expense as well for your clients. You can redefine what, for instance, a lawyer does. And I think that works in any industry. And we talk about disruptive tech, and that's an easy one to understand technology. But the more established, older style industries, you don't see as much disruption or even attempts at disruption like law.
And for the industry that you're working in at the moment, what kind of challenges and opportunities are you seeing moving forward?
I think a lot of it from a legal perspective is the laws are changing all the time. They always say the first settlers get arrows, the second one get land. Yeah, that's where the cannabis industry is at. For people who want to go into it, I tell them to go into it with their core competencies they already have or their skills they already utilize. So if they're in HR, don't go into cannabis and grow weed. Go into cannabis and do HR. So just take your skills and translate them into this industry. This is the fastest growing industry in our lifetimes. It is exceeding where the .coms are in terms of growth rate. And the same with CBD, which is the non-psychoactive component, medical component of hemp. It's absolutely an industry everybody should go for before the bubble pops and then go somewhere else.
And because of these medical components, are you seeing a real shift in attitudes and acceptance now as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing something like CBD helping children from seizures. And you can't say, no, we don't want to help children live a good life, especially when they're not getting high because it's non-psychoactive. So it's really hard to push against it at this point with a clear conscience.
So as we're heading into 2019, what's next for both yourself and Gleam Law?
Oh, we'll keep doing this and expanding, opening up a couple of more offices. Hopefully we'll see the legalization on the federal level for the U.S., which would be great. It's about time we end the drug war because the drug war is over. It turns out drugs won.
Well, a huge thanks for coming on today. But before I do let you go, could I just ask you to remind the listeners of where they can find you online, maybe find out a little bit more information, and also maybe reach out and contact a member of your team if they have any questions after our conversation today?
Sure. We're at Gleam Law, like the gleam in your eye, law.com. We also have a Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter page. And that's the best place. Otherwise, we have a couple other URLs. I think assholelawyer.com goes to us. Can I say that?
You can say anything you want. It's the internet.
So assholelawyer.com will find us as well.
What's the story behind that? I've got to go there now you've said that.
It just forwards to our domain. I mean, who doesn't want an asshole lawyer on their side?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a huge thanks for taking the time to speak with us. I love how you've shared your unique story, and I think it will resonate with a lot of people, especially because you've chosen your own path and choosing to make a difference there. So a big thank you again for coming on today. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Neil has a great name, of course, but he also has a great story. And he now represents clients in the cannabis industry, and Gleam Law seems to be going from strength to strength. And when you think about the legalisation of cannabis, You might think of how technology is creating new opportunities for this new industry and how it can also help people in pain or, like you said there, children that are suffering seizures. But I had literally no idea about legal battles around ownership, partnership disputes, commercial contracts, employment disputes, trademarks, patents, real estate and landlord disputes, property liability, taxes, insurance. And for each of these concerns, there needs to be litigation attorneys who specialise in such intricacies. And again, these are areas that I had no idea existed or there was even a need for. So he really opened my eyes today. And I love the story, how he was dissatisfied with the way things were working, so he just created something different. And Neil is also a bit of a science tech nerd who gives their clients a distinct advantage when protecting intellectual property laws for the marijuana industry. And I'm gutted that I forgot to bring that up. But maybe we'll get him back on next year and explore that too. But as always, if you have any questions after listening to today's episode, you can email me techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or visit my website techblogwriter.co.uk. But it's time for me to sit in front of a fire like an old man drinking my hot chocolate and finish season 2 of The Sinner on Netflix on this cold, wet winter night. So thanks for listening. I'll return tomorrow with another guest. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.